Hi, I'm Ellie from crystallinks.com. Today is Wednesday, July 19th, 2017. As you probably know, I'm a psychic reader, and something has come up. It has actually come up many times in the past that I thought I'd like to address today. I'm not only a psychic, my degree is in psychology, so I can also work as a therapist. I started as a therapist, but when you have psychic abilities, rather than try to pull the information out of the person who comes to see you with dreams that I could interpret now, with different references, different metaphors, different symbolisms in their life, that it's so much easier to address as a psychic than a therapist, I decided, okay, that's the direction that I'm going to take. Be a psychic, leave the therapy to the therapist. Now, here's the question. Many clients ask me after a session, when they're happy and they've enjoyed the session, they'll say, how long do I have to wait to come back? And my take on that is simply, you have to really let some time pass, because I don't want to be your therapist. Whatever it is that I had to tell you had some psychology mixed in with psychic prediction, mixed in with a whole bunch of things in your life. And at the end of the day, what I had to tell you should be enough so that you do not have to come back too frequently. I don't want to work in that capacity as a psychologist with my clients that I see. Now, yesterday, a friend said to me, how long should somebody see a psychologist? Because he is aware of someone who has been seeing the same therapist for 10 years. And I'm just going to give you my take, okay? When you see a doctor, or not a medical doctor, a therapist, also known as a counselor, a life coach, any number of names that really mean the same thing, meaning that you are going to someone who is working on your psychology, on your mind, on your emotions, okay? You go for a number of times. You get what you need to. All sessions should be recorded. Anyone who does not record a session is not being fair to you. You can record anything on a cell phone now, because you need to reflect back as to what you heard, because maybe what they said let's say the session's an hour, what they said at the beginning of the session in the first 5 or 10 minutes, okay, after that your mind started coming up with all these questions, and it started wandering, and you wanted the person you're talking to extrapolate more on what they were saying, and you lose a lot. So please remember, take the cell phone, take any kind of recording device. I encourage that with everybody who comes here. You may want to listen back to this in 6 months from now and say, what did Ellie say? You know, and it's not just what I said, it's how I said it, because people twist things around. So if I said that you and your relationship are going to struggle through a while more and it's going to end, you may interpret that to mean, oh, it's going to end tomorrow, or how long are we going to struggle through? How many times are we going to go back and forth, etc. One little sentence can go into a whole host of questions. So record everything, make notes if that feels comfortable to you. For me, it doesn't matter. Whatever people need to do, whatever makes them happy. When they come to see me in my psychic capacity, they do not lay on a couch, they sit on a chair. I sit across from them. We use a variety of tools to get to the heart of what, they came for, because every reading is different. But to answer the question, how often, how long should you see a therapist? If the therapist is working for you, if there's growth, if you're not too codependent on that person, then you should continue on. But if you're really saying the same things over and over again, there may not be any value, because what's happening is your therapist is eliciting information from you that possibly you're just not ready to hear. Take a break. Or not saying the things that you need to know in the moment. Find another therapist, okay? You stay with a psychic for as long as you're comfortable. I mean, I've had people come back after a couple of months, after a couple of years, after a couple of decades, you know. Everybody's life unfolds differently. And of course, as I always say, it's based on your program DNA for these experiences. Now, with your therapist or your partner's therapist or any therapist, okay, you stay as long as there's growth. Do not continue on if you're rehashing the same old, same old. Your life has to be gaining insights. That's why you need to record. You have to be processing. I mean, you may want to bring your dreams to a therapist, you know, for interpretation, or someone who does dream therapy. There's a lot of different ways you can go. As you know, reality, here's something off the internet which got me to do this. Mental illness is far more common than we know. This is an article from Scientific American, but I've written that article. You've read that article in probably a lot of different venues. But the bottom line is we live in a bipolar reality. It is electromagnetic. It is duality, polarity, whatever. It means there will always be positives and negatives. It will probably always be self-defeating. It means when the times are good, the times will get bad, so prepare. It means that issues that you think you've worked through from something happened in childhood, you have to make sure that they heal, because they will always sit in your consciousness and in your soul, and they can surface again. But now you can look at them. If they surface, you can look at them and say, well, now I'm looking at them through different eyes. 5 years ago, I said, okay, I'm done with the fact that my father abused me when I was a child. It's over. I'm done. I've reconciled it. But then you may discover that you haven't. So it's this whole human biogenetic experiment set in linear time to experience the good and the bad and the positive and the negatives of emotions. But your own mental processing will tell you whether you're someone who could blow something off quickly and say, okay, fine, and detach, or you're someone who's a little more OCD or has other issues where whatever happens, you have to dwell, you have to analyze, you have to reanalyze, you have to go on and on and on with your thinking on something. It's a long, tedious process. So change your therapist, or see two therapists. See two therapists and a psychic, you know. Get opinions. Value what works for you, what aligns with your programming. I've had people who walked out of here because I said this and this and this was going to happen to their lives, and they walked out and they were all upset, sometimes with a tear. You're not going to marry this person, and they were all upset with me. And my doorman will say, you know, you had a lady who came to see you today and she was crying. And they will come back years later and said, well, you told me I wasn't going to marry this person or go on with this person, and I'd find somebody better down the line, or maybe you won't. And it all came to pass. So don't blame the psychic, don't blame the psychologist, don't blame anybody. Find someone who is in line with your growth. I'm not going to say spiritual growth, that's not me, with your emotional needs, okay? Someone who can get you at a point where you can function in a better way. They may suggest holistic practices, they may suggest Western medicine, and you know, I mean, we do know that this country is self-medicated. I heard a commercial when I was driving my car yesterday. I think it was for a company called Big Red, okay, Big Reds or something like that. I don't know. It kind of caught my eye because the guy said, go to Big Reds because we're all on meds. I was like, did I really hear that? You know, you can't do a repeat button like you can on the internet. Play that back again, but that's exactly what the guy said. I think it was Big Reds. It might have been another company, and I don't even know what the product was. It just like, we're all on meds. Yeah, I guess that kind of parallels what's going on. People, as you know, we have an opioid epidemic. People are drugging, they're drinking, they're legalizing substances, should we call them. You got to do what works for you. But this company, this country, and this planet is very much depressed. People are frustrated, angry, depressed, and because of that, there will be a lot of substance abuse. Substance abuse, no matter who it is, no matter, I don't care what people say, substance abuse always goes to some degree of emotional problems or mental illness. You got to figure out your own. You got to find someone who will help you figure it out. And the first thing you need to do in a professional way is get a proper diagnosis. Excuse me. Get someone who can properly diagnose what's wrong with you, because it may not be one thing, it may be a series of things that are wrong with you. You may not just have one personality disorder, it may overlap with another. Everything is overlapping into everything else anyway. So mental illness is far more common. You look around at the world and you say, they project 50% of the world has mental illness. I think it's more. They also say that new research suggests that nearly everyone will develop a psychological disorder at some point in their lives, but for most it's temporary. That I believe. If you go through a death and you go through a loss and you go through whatever, you may suffer from anxiety and depression. In that time until you're healing, you know, we're about abuse and healing and dealing with all those emotions. If you in that time, yes, you may just say, okay, you know, this is what I'm going through now. I'm talking about the clinical depression. I'm talking about people who really belong on meds. I am a believer in meds, finding the right doctor, that's a medical doctor, the right meds, that which will help you function and not feel like you're always in pain. I don't suffer from any of that, and I don't have depression, but I've read people who do, and people on bipolar. I mean, my clientele has covered everything, even psychosis and whatever. It's very unfortunate, but our brain, that is a computer, and we know this is a computer, a biochemical machine, is sometimes programmed differently or with issues that will involve mental illness. So on the matter of, let's to sum up, is mental illness more common than we know? Well, if you live in a big city like in New York, you know it's everywhere. If you live in a small little town where everybody's nice and sweet, maybe that's different, you know, but things will eventually cause you to either be depressed or have anxiety. You have to deal the way you have to deal. How long to see the same therapist, be it months or years or even decades? I think that's overkill. Go get a second opinion. Go see. You can always go back to the first one, but you could see a second person, particularly if they're a younger person with a different vantage point, a different perspective on what's going on. What I do is I do a combination of, this is the psychological factors that is causing your problem, and here is my psychic reading on how long you're going to continue in this pattern, because life is just patterns. They're very predictable and they're just very easy to spot and see. So the psychology of our emotional reality takes many twists and turns. You're part of it, I'm part of it, we're all part of it. Whatever therapist you decide to see, if that person works for you, by all means go for it. If that person you feel is not in the best interest of your personal growth, find somebody else. Some people like a man, some like a woman, some like an older person, some like a younger person. You may go by recommendation from a friend and say, no, that person's not for me, I couldn't connect. Because we're becoming psychically attuned, so we know if we connect with someone. So that all being said, I wish you good luck on this journey of emotions, and I hope you find the right therapist and psychic. Thank you.